Right, hi everybody, welcome back to Guitar in the Real World. I'm a little bit behind this week, I've been a bit distracted by other bits and pieces. So I thought I'd quickly do a little video about how I tend to use my AX8 by Fractal. It's a modelling device, if you're not familiar with it. I did a little video about the Line 6, what Line 6 was it? The Line 6 HX Stomp recently. I'm just going to really talk about how I use the AX8 in a live situation, and also how I use it for recording in the studio. So if we look at the actual layout of the thing, you can see that we've got 8 numbered switches here, and I've set them up to be a combination of patches, and also they're assigned, depending on what patch you're on, they're assigned to different functions. You've also got this over here, these function buttons, which F1 up here, which is I've got is assigned as a kind of bank up thing, and a bank down. I can use these. If you hold on to F3, for example, it activates the tuner. If you just hit it, that does something, but I can't remember what I've set it up for. F2, I'm using that as a scene selector. So if you're on like a patch and you want the a set of different effects to come in or out, you can hit that scene button there. So I won't go into too much depth about what I've done with the exact programming, but I'll demonstrate kind of each sound and how I use it in a gig situation, and how why I've got the sounds programmed as I have them. Okay, so the first patch we have is basically a clean twin sound, which has got it's pretty clean and got tons of headroom. It's got all the attributes of that a twin has, which is the kind of really, you know, not much compression there at all. For those sort of stratty sounds as well. But I've also got the first button to give me a compressor, so that gives me a bit more without the compressor, with the compressor. I also have a second scene set up, which well, let's go back to the first scene, because button 7 I've got set up as a delay. So in this patch it's sort of fairly ambient delay. But if I go into the other scene and switch on the delay, it's bit of slap back there. So already within one patch I've got a variety of different things that can be quite useful. Okay, so that's the first patch. If I go on to the next patch, it's basically the same thing but with chorus. Fairly standard chorus there. Most gigs you can find yourself, especially in the world of musical theatre, needing chorus. But I've also got button 2 set up to be a delay. Just for those luscious 80s moments. Scene 2, what happens is it brings in the delay and a compressor at the same time, so it really does give you a much process kind of sound. So that's quite useful to have that as an extra clean patch with its extra little features there. The next patch along, 3, I really like this patch. This is based on a Sir Badger 18, and I've got a couple of things set up that aren't necessarily assigned within it at the moment, but I've got this. I had to do a gig a couple of years ago where we were playing With or Without You, the U2 song, so actually that typical edge delay there, but that's quite a bit like that, isn't it? If I remember rightly. Now I can go on to the second scene using the F2 button, and what I've got there is extra drive involved now, and a much more standard delay, but I can switch the delay off if I want. Yeah, so that's kind of a good patch if you're doing, you want a bit more grunt. You can use the clean version of the patch, the cleanish version, as a kind of a crunchy rhythm sound, you know. Yeah, it's nice and dynamic, that. So I like having that one at my disposal as well. Next one along is kind of a Mesa Boogie Mark II-C. So if you want to go for a bit more of an LA kind of sound, you know. I've also got a drive pedal in there to give it a bit more welly if you need it. Gives it a bit more for the sort of more of the lead kind of tone. And there's also delay, which I've got assigned to button 4. It's quite handy because if you want to go from like one patch and you want to go to this and you want to use patch 4 as your lead and you want to quickly activate the delay at the same time, it's on the same button, so you can go to that patch and then go to... You don't have to press 2 different buttons, you can press the same button twice, which is quite handy. Also got a scene button, so this has got chorus on it as well. Chorus drive and delay for the full-on 80s effect. Yeah, so that's the kind of the first set of buttons there, and how that alone would give me enough tones to do most gigs, to be honest with you. The second row, I've got this patch here, which is the clean twin again, but it's with a tremolo. So but I've also got a drive on it, so but I've also got the option of hitting scene 2 straight away as well. So if I was on this patch and I wanted to go to the scene 2 sound, I'll just hit that button twice and we're into instant '70s phaser, kind of MXR phase 90 kind of sound. I really like that phaser sound actually, and you can add the drive to that as well if you want to be a bit more crunchy. Patch 6 I've got set up purely as the funky wah wah. And I haven't actually got anything else assigned to that patch, though I could assign some drive to it or other effects if I needed to. Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. That patch 7 is like a much beefier, more driven version of the Sir Badger. It's more bottom end than the sound, a lot more gain in that one. And the delay is in there as a preset. The next one along, I've got 100 Watt Plexi, which again is a sound which is very useful because it's quite dynamic, so you can be playing something that requires a sort of slightly crunchy sound. Go onto the bridge humbucker and suddenly it's... could come from somewhere else. I could come from here and then go kind of sound. So yeah, you got that classic rock sound at your disposal. Okay, so I mean that's basically my gigging bank, and it gives me pretty much everything I need. Other specialist sounds that I sometimes like to use, especially when I'm recording, is if I go up to, where am I going? If I want to go up and find these, this is one sound that I quite like. If I'm recording anything particularly heavy, it's this, which is 5153 red it's called. I'm wondering whether it's actually bogner ecstasy or something. Not quite sure. There's a few. There's another Euro Red and Euro Uber are some of the other bogner amps, but that's quite heavy. But I like combining that with the which one is it? There's the Euro Uber. Let's try the Euro Uber for some real heavy. Yeah, that's quite heavy, and but I also like to use the, if I can find it. I never know where it is in here. But it's the 6160 is what it's called. I might have gone past it, which is the based on a Van Halen 5150, but it's got a bit more mid-range to it than the other sort of bogner kind of sounds. Here we go, 6160 block. The Mark II version of it there. So I quite like to combine that sound with the other more scooped sound if I'm trying to do like a double tracked heavy rhythm sound. Beyond that, there's a whole host of other sounds available, but it means that using something like the AX8 can take the heartache out of accessing sounds quickly. If this was 30 years ago and I was trying to do home recording, I'd have to mic up a cabinet and have a load of different amps, which is not very practical from a volume point of view, and it's also not very practical from a finance point of view. So in many respects we live in a golden era when it comes to using minimal amounts of gear to get the biggest, the most, or get a wide variety of results. But yeah, so that's effectively my favourite set of sounds that I use in most gig situations with the AX8. Hopefully that's been useful to give you an insight into what is possible these days. The unit itself is quite expensive when you first buy it, but because of firmware updates, it'll keep you going for years, and it's built like a tank. So if you're in the market for some piece of equipment, you could try something like this, or obviously the Line 6 Helix or the Kemper. They all have their own strengths, but I think with a lot of gear, it's a question of just, if you settle on using something yourself that works for you, you can really find a way of getting the best results that work for you. And also, if you're familiar with the equipment, it means that you're not going to be in a situation where you're faffing around on a gig or a session, wasting people's precious time. If you know your way around that piece of equipment really well, you will be it will be to the benefit of the whole gig. Anyway, I'll be back soon with some more stuff. I've got a few more interviews and discussions lined up, and I also need to get the second half of the interview I did with Jake Wilson up. So that's interesting, because it was a long discussion. So take care, guys, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.